Hello and welcome to People of Interest. I am your host, Miguel Guanipa. We do People of Interest is a show that is based on the idea that everyone has a story, and so I invite people to come to the show and share the story or stories, in the hopes that through those stories we can all be taught something, we can learn something, or we can be encouraged, and we can maybe even be inspired. Today, my guest is Bryan Graves. He's a good friend. He's also a family man. He's a great musician and a businessman. And today he's here to tell us his stories. Welcome, Bryan.
All right, glad to be here.
Good. How you doing today?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
We put some mountains on the background because Bryan said he comes from Japan and he wanted the Mount Kilimanjaro back there or something. So, no, Bryan is a California native, right?
California, that's right.
California.
That's right. And the mountains do look a little
They
California.
look like California. Can you tell?
Yeah.
If,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Not sure exactly where that is.
A couple of pines back there. So,
But I do feel at home. I do.
You
feel
do?
At home. Yes.
so when did you come from California to Massachusetts?
Yeah. I mean, shoot, 20 something years ago. So, 1989 it was when I flew over to head into go to a university in Boston. Yeah.
Oh, so you're just starting college right there?
Well, I did a couple years in California at a junior college, and I was playing football there, and our football team did super well. And a coach from Boston University called up and said, "Hey, I want you to come play at BU for us." So that's what kind of got me rolling out here to Massachusetts.
Oh, so you got like a little scholarship for football for school to go to school? Or
Yeah, it's actually it's a big part of my story is that kind of a small town California boy, little shy, a little lost, but I was a good athlete, and getting a phone call from a coach at a big university out in the East Coast, so it was kind of intimidating, but I took a chance, 1989, 1990, and it's one of probably the better decisions I've ever made in my life, as far as kind of taking a risk and just getting out of a small town and going for it, doing something bigger.
So you were living with how many people were in your house when you were living in California before you?
Yeah, so we had a decent sized family. There were four of us brothers and two sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fall on the second in the family. So I'm number two. My brother's a year and a half older, so he had just left to shoot out to UC Davis, which is another big school in California, medical type school. And so I kind of default became the bigger brother when he left. And so at that point, before I came out here, it was just 5 kids in the home. My mother and my stepfather, Jeff. So so it was a busy household for sure.
Sounds like it. So you're like, well, 19 at that time?
I was about 8. I was kind of young for my grade, so I just turned 18, maybe just in August turning 19. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of.
So you said something that made me think a little bit there. You said that you were a young kid, you were a little lost. So in terms of that lostness, whatever it was, we could probably talk about it another time. But did this moment when you heard that you could go to Massachusetts and go to college, a football scholarship, how did that impact you at that moment?
Yeah, it's funny when I was just talking to somebody about it recently, and I kind of had a little bit of a premonition or a thought, or maybe it was more of a desire. I always thought it would be really fun to go away. It was kind of a secret thought that I didn't tell anybody when I was growing up. It'd be fun to go away and just do something big, And, probably the more accurate way to think about it was that I think it was a God thing. I think I'm a person of faith, and I think he sort of planted that in my heart. And so when that time came, it was like more, I was leaning into it and kind of excited, like, oh my gosh, this is that thing that I thought about as a kid, you know, which surprised, I think, a lot of my family, because I think they sort of pegged me as the kid who would stay close to home. You know, I was a little, meaning lost. I was not very organized. I had no concept of a clock and time, so I think my parents thought I was a little bit of a lost child, and didn't have a whole lot of faith in me as far as moving forward and going to college. I think they were hopeful, but secretly they were like, oh, well, see how this works out.
Oh, okay. So for you, it was a little bit a good risk, but it was also a certain level of excitement. Like, oh, this is really cool.
I was definitely excited.
And
Absolutely.
you're like on your own, basically. You came here on your own.
Yeah, yeah. The thought of adventure, meeting new people, going on a journey with that you just don't know what's going to come around the corner, you know, and so that was just pure excitement. And then added, you know, I was a good athlete. I knew how to play football well, and so that would have been my familiar place. Like, at least I could go away, but then stay within my comfort zone, which is playing a sport, you know, and trying to make it in that crazy world. Yeah.
You always liked sports since you were little? Or?
Yeah, in my family, I think they sort of pegged me as the natural athlete. I think all of my brothers and sisters were all really good athletes, but they sort of put me on the, like, I could almost do anything well. At least that's what they, you know, that's the way, you know, family, they peg you and you get labeled and you're like, oh, okay. I guess
that's not a bad peg, though.
That's not bad. Yeah, there's some bad ones, but
that was a good peg.
Like the no concept of a clock and thing, you know.
Well, you know, we all struggle with something. So.
That's right.
So Bryan is a native of California, but right now you live in Natick with your family.
Yeah, I live in Natick. We obviously we were in Boston, and I you know, got married. Obviously, I have a family, and I have 3 amazing kids. And I don't know if we'll talk about that. That's
yeah, it's not obvious. It's obvious to me, but not to the people at that.
Oh, okay. Well, you said I had a family, so I had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I'm letting the people know right now.
All right. Well, I have a family. I'm married to an amazing woman and 3 kids. And back when our one child was pretty young, we were living in Belmont, thinking, you know what? It's a little too expensive in Belmont here. Let's move way out to the country. Like Natick.
Natick, the country.
Yeah. But apparently it wasn't far enough, because Natick's a pretty expensive place to live, but a good place. It's a fun
somehow
place.
you guys have managed to do
Yeah, we're
well. So
making it work. Yeah.
you have how many children do you have?
So I have 3. I have Anthony, who is 18 and just about to graduate from high school. Big deal. Our first graduate. I have another daughter, Mariah, who is a sophomore, and she's our dancer. We call her our dancer. She dances a lot during the week and is in competition season and doing great at that. So then I have one more daughter, Zoe, who's in 8th grade and about to go into high school. So we're in that stage where all the kids are going to be in high school and one in college. So
you can tell us a little bit about something that I know they don't know, but if you talk a little bit about you adopted these children, right?
Yeah. That's another big sort of crazy adventure, and I don't, I couldn't have dreamed that this was going to be something I would have done growing up. I think like any kid, I had a dream of, you get married and you have a couple kids and you live happily ever after. But my wife and I, as a part of a story that might be of interest to some people, because we tried to have kids for, I don't know, almost 8-9 years and struggle with infertility, which, once you kind of land in that world and you meet other people that have the same issues, you discover that, wow, it's actually much bigger than a bigger problem than I would have thought. That's why there's these huge fertility clinics that take in lots and lots of hopeful parents, you know, and they do in vitro fertilization. We actually tried that as well for a few times in vitro, and that didn't work. And so we thought, you know, we really want to have kids. And so instead of giving up and sort of like, okay, well, we'll just have dogs or cats and travel a lot, you know. We said, no, we don't want to grow old and not have kids, you know. We love the idea.
You
of
want to
having,
grow old or get kids so you can get old.
so I can get old and I can, you know,
Yeah.
become a grandparent someday.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we decided, hey, let's adopt. Let's try this out. And you know, went through some classes, and two of our kids, our oldest Anthony and Mariah, were adopted through the state. And our youngest Zoe was more of a private adoption, and that's kind of a big conversation. But those are two very different things, and have different levels of stress and levels of fun and amazement as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talked a little bit about it in the past, and about it's a pretty involved process to adopt a child, no?
Yeah, it can get very it can take years, and so in our case, it was a little bit of a struggle to get through our first adoption and to get through Anthony. So when you adopt through the state, there may be some watching who have done that. They'll know that it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it does cost in emotions and hopefulness, and because things could go wrong. So when you're adopting through the state, you foster to adopt. So there's a time period where you're fostering, and you're sort of waiting for the system. What was the DSS system? Is now the Department of Children and Families. It takes them time to make sure there's no family members out there who are interested in these kids. A grandparent, you know, an uncle that moved back into the state who's willing to take them. So it really takes sometimes 2 and 3 years, sometimes shorter, but 2 and 3 years. It took 3 years for us to solidify Anthony's adoption.
Yeah.
And that was, we went through a little bit of an emotional roller coaster through that. Because there was a point when the judge was conflicted, and about a year and a half into it, because you know, things were progressing with one of the parents, and so yeah.
But now that's in the past. Now your children are growing up.
You know, it feels like that was a while ago now.
Yeah.
We feel like these are our kids, and we love them like they're our biological kids. I don't know what it's like to have a biological kid, but these feel like our kids, like through and through, emotionally, spiritually. So, yeah.
I noticed one thing too. When I see you and I see Anthony and Mariah, I almost see a little bit of a physical resemblance, which is interesting. You know,
that's actually true. And we hear this a lot. It's the strangest thing is that there may be something where you live with your parents you kind of morph a little bit into their, you know, mannerisms, and
like the husband starting looking like the wife after a few years and stuff.
They start dressing alike.
I think Christine's starting to to look like me. My wife is starting to look like me. So.
I was gonna say something.
Yeah, she dyes her hair black too.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry.
So there's a little bit of that, but you know, it's interesting that Anthony looks a lot like my wife, Lisa.
Yeah.
He has blue eyes. I mean, it would shock people if they knew that we had adopted them. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. They look just like you. And so, and Mariah actually has green eyes and looks like me, and it's pretty amazing.
Now, let me ask you. We can dwell just a little bit more on that, but because but I mean, we can talk about other things. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about that, another one in the subject, is when you look at your children, you look at Anthony, Mariah, and Zoe. And so you looked at them as individuals,
right?
Okay, and you look at, kind of like live with them, so you see their nature, you see their temperament. But there's something always deeper about a person that you see in that person that you say, this is the deep part. What is the deep part on each one of your children that you see?
Wow. Ooh, that's a good question. I'll start with Anthony. I'll just go from oldest to youngest. But there are times we look at Anthony and just think, my wife and I have a similar thought that, this kid has some pretty serious leadership potential. Like there's something going to happen when he's older where he's going to be put in leadership roles, and that we as parents really shouldn't discount that. And when things go wrong in his life, or he makes a few bad decisions here or there,
Like every kid.
And
many adults.
Is to not completely, don't rain on his parade too much. Love him through it, and give him space to grow. It's always the hardest with your oldest child because you don't quite know how to let go, and there's it's almost like you're a practice child, and then you do a little bit better on your.
And all about that.
Your others, so so we've probably been a little harder on Anthony, or maybe a little just trying to figure out how to parent and how to love him, how to protect him, but now we're in a really good phase where we're letting go a little bit and letting him flourish, letting him grow up, make some decisions, some good, some bad, like every kid, and so that's been good. And then the deeper piece that we see in him a lot is that he's very analytical in his thinking. So I think he has a real gift in his thinking, and his he'll read a book or analyze a situation and really come up with some pretty interesting theories and ways of looking at it. They're like, man, that's a little beyond his age. Like that's really, really unique. And we think that maybe would tie into his leadership potential in the future. So, but yeah, he's got some growing to do. He's still young. He's a good kid. And then I'd go down to Mariah. Mariah has shocked us. She actually, when she came to us she was a little behind, maybe speech-wise and developmental, and because she had gone through a tough little road. We didn't get her till she was 3 years old, so there was a little bit of a history and a life there, kind of bouncing in some foster homes and some history. So when she came in, we were a little like, wow, this will be interesting. This might take a little bit more patience and see where. But she has flowered and bloomed into this beautiful young lady who's has an amazing ability to dance. And recently she won a pretty high honor award in a duet that she did in a competition, and I think she scored probably beyond what they thought she was going to do, and she's just she's excelling way beyond what we thought. So as far as that deep thing, that deep inner thing with Mariah, I think she's going to really excel. We don't know what she's going to do, but we think that she's just going to flourish. She's going to really flourish wherever she goes, and she's really coming into her own academically. So we feel like she's just getting better and better every year. So she's gone way beyond where we thought she would be at this point. So blown away, literally blown away. And say Zoe has, she's our youngest, and she is, as far as her gift to the world, she is an amazing soccer player. So she's in club soccer, pay to play, but she's doing really well. She's at a real top level, and every game she's in, she contributes, and she's actually risen up as a leader. What we're hearing now in the last year or so is that a lot of other girls really look up to her. And they want to know what Zoe's doing, or what, they look to her for leadership on the field, and she's very aggressive and fun to watch, and scores a lot of goals. So it's really fun. As a parent, we're pretty darn proud. It's really fun. But she has kind of I call her one of her secret powers, is that she really, and we've heard this from other people too, and it confirmed, is that Zoe really deeply cares about her friends. So when Zoe, she doesn't allow a lot of people into her world and her orbit, but when she does, oh my gosh, they are in her world, and she's very loyal and very connected, and her friends feel really valued and loved by her. So that's one of her little secret powers that we're really proud of. It's fun to watch. It's goes way beyond sports accolades and what we think she'll do really well. You know, even in college potentially. But it's more important to see her character development and
She
her
values relationships.
she values relationships, and her friends just feel really loved and cared for by her. That's a really sweet gift, you know. It's a really
That's
sweet
great.
gift.
Well, that hasn't. You kind of. It was good that you guys came together and got these children, and you're bringing them up, and part of it is who they are, but there's also the part of some of the fruits of the labor as a good parent. So, you know.
Yeah, I think I don't think we're getting an A+ in parenting. I think we're learning as we're going. But
I get an A- sometimes.
you're getting A-.
And I do really good. But I'm not. All my kids are out of the house, so I'm not testing anymore. But
Right. Yeah.
well, let's talk about a little bit. We're ignoring somebody here. I keep forgetting. We have your wife, Lisa.
That's right.
Yeah, she's part of the equation too. She really, I'm sure has a lot to do with what's going on with the children too, right now.
Lisa's she's definitely the heartbeat of the home.
Where you get that line from? Did you just make that up?
I think I did make that up, but I'm
Okay,
sure.
hold on, I want to borrow that. Yeah.
She is the epicenter. So she comes from a really good family. I don't know how to put it. Where hardworking. She grew up in New England here, so she's that typical New England girl who's not afraid to work hard. Comes from a farming family, at least for some of their life. They had a farm and some animals and some great I don't know fields. I don't know what they were growing, but there's something that I've discovered that that you know, people who come from that background, there's a solid, I don't know, they're again just hardworking.
Some grit.
They got some grit.
Sturdiness.
They're kind of
I come
steady.
from Venezuela and I'm giving you the words. What's up with that? Okay.
So so Lisa is she is actually an amazing woman. She's a nurse. She's been nursing for many years, and a profession that she says, oh my gosh, if I would love it if my kids would become nurses, because it's just one of those areas where you can really morph and change into different styles of nursing as your life changes. And so she's probably on to her third or fourth career in nursing. They're all very different. And lately, so she could be home after school, she's taken on school nursing to truncate her hours, and she can come home actually in the summer as well.
So you met Lisa in church, correct?
Yeah. So this is in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And Lisa went to school at UMass Amherst, and so she lived out in that area for a while. And then lucky for me, she eventually moved into Boston and landed in the same church I was going to. And I immediately took notice. I was like, oh, yeah, this is like, I think, I'd like to get to know this woman.
And you played the guitar back then too?
I played the guitar back then, that's right.
I heard like a story, some guy told me one time that the best way to woo a girl, if you know how to play an instrument, is to try to teach them lessons. Did that
That's
ever
right.
occur to you?
That's a little bit of the story.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead. Share that.
So I kind of worked a little deal, so I do little guitar lessons, and she would say, "Hey, come over.
Did she learn?
Well, she knew how to play a little bit, but it was taking her skills to a new level, I guess.
Yeah. That's good. So what was it about Lisa that you said in your heart, oh, I love this girl. Well, I'm gonna marry this girl.
Wow.
What are the things besides? It doesn't have to be just one, but
Yeah, the
yeah, there was something.
typical. Oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
very beautiful woman, and she's and I think I really something one of her superpowers is that she's just kind of a bold, strong, bold New England woman, and I'm a little bit more of more shy in my character, a little
Yeah.
less like assertive, and so there was something about that. Maybe the opposites attract kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
She was very very strong woman, and just not afraid to speak her mind, and I just thought it would crack me up. It was just the funniest thing. She would just say the
Mm.
darndest things, and like I can't believe you just said that, but it's actually really intriguing.
It's all
Like
good. It's all good.
it's all
Good
good.
listening.
Yeah. So so that was a big piece,
Hmm.
and she obviously she important piece for me that she loved God, and she had done some missionary work,
Mm-hmm.
and that was an important piece for me, that we both had done some missionary work, and in sort of Spanish speaking countries, and we always thought, because there was a piece that I thought, when I get older, I'd love to take a couple years, if not more,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe do missionary work for 5 years
Mm-hmm.
or 10 years in some other country. And so we still kind of talk about that. It's kind of our secret little, I wonder if
Huh.
that'll happen for us,
When the kids are growing up or something.
It's kind of weird hearing myself say it, but we have talked about it a lot,
Huh.
And so every once in a while we'll work on our Spanish, and
Well, let's get into that a little bit then, because
Yeah.
sometimes the people watching out there, I don't know who'll be watching, but or who's watching, but people will be watching and they hear the word God or something, or we love God and so forth, and so they probably they may immediately identify and say, oh, okay, I know what he's talking about, or they may be just passing through it because maybe they need more context.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can get into that a little bit, and I guess what I would ask is, so when you mention God, it's because God is a part of your existence, in a sense. When you think about God, or He's part of your life, and He's been a part of your life for however times. When do you remember, or it doesn't have to be like, maybe there wasn't a moment, but do you remember when you began to countenance the idea of God?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's it was between my junior year and senior year in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I had somehow got involved in a group that decided they want to do a trip to Texas, and it was going to be a little bit of teaching, and then they were going to shoot off to Mexico for a week and do some volunteer work and help out and love on people, and so I didn't really know much about it, but I thought, hey, this sounds like a good deal to me, and it was some other friends, and my girlfriend was going at the time, and that was probably the biggest draw, actually.
Mm.
And so I thought, hey, I'll go. I'd love to go. So when I get there, and they're doing this teaching, boy, I just felt like it was really the biggest part of my story. Is I felt like I met with God in a very significant way within that week of teaching. And they challenged us to read some books, and I distinctly remember them saying, hey, why don't you go out, take a half hour, don't sit by anybody else, go sit somewhere where nobody else is sitting.
Mm.
And they gave us all a notebook and a pencil, and they said, why don't you ask God to speak to you if you've never heard His voice? Like,
Hmm.
you may not hear anything, but hey, give it a shot. So I'm this 16-year-old kid, ish, 16, I guess. And I try this. I'm sitting by a tree. I try this exercise, and I say, God, if you're there, what would you say to me? Speak to me. And sure enough, I put my pencil there just to get ready. And next thing you know, like 2 pages later, I was just starting to write. I just felt like I was being spoken to, and I was I mean, as I was writing, it's as if I was writing a letter from someone else to me. It was like definitely, I felt like it was God speaking to me when I went back and read it. I was like, oh my gosh, like, so that just it shocked me. I thought, I don't think I'm making this up, because these are, in a sense, these are not even my own. These are words I wouldn't use. These are phrasing I wouldn't use. It's like a little more sophisticated from where I'm, and it was beautiful, and I felt like God was just loving me, and so I really took notice of that. And through the rest of my trip, that kind of caught my attention, and I felt a deep wooing of God and saying, hey, I want you to follow me. I'm going to give you a choice here. And so it was a real powerful moment. And there's a lot to the story.
Yeah.
I don't know how much to get into.
No, I mean,
but that was, it was about that age.
Yeah.
And I took him really serious. I ended up staying for another couple of weeks. I asked my parents to change the flight, and this is all verifiable. You can ask my stepfather. He was like, "What? You want me to change the flight?" That's like, I didn't realize how expensive that was. And I stayed another couple of weeks because I was just having this experience with God. Everybody else went home, and then during that next couple of weeks, he said, I'm going to give you a couple paths. He was speaking to me so clearly. I was like, you can go a conventional path, and matter of fact, you'll probably marry this person who you're dating right now, and that'll go well for a while, but he goes, then there'll be problems, he said. Or you can take path number 2. I'm giving you 2 paths. And the other path will be more an adventure. I'm not going to tell you what that's going to be, but it's going to be, it'll be a lot better than path number 1. There's 2 paths. What do you want to do, Bryan? And as a kid, I couldn't believe all this was happening. And I said, you know what? I want to follow you guys. Adventure sounds good. Adventure sounds fun. Let's do it. So, yeah.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing that we were talking. You were saying, you're describing yourself and your wife, for example, how she's different. She's kind of like a stronger personality, maybe, but you're more like a little more shy. But even though you're shy, you still like adventure. You still like taking risks.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Yeah, I think I've taken a lot more risk, and I in my adulthood, I think because a big piece of it is say, hey, God, which way should I ask him, I pray a lot. I say, God, where do I go? What do I do? And give me your plan. And when you get a little thing in your heart, like, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? I think this will really go well for you. And sometimes there's a lot of risk involved, but it's just, there's no hesitation. If I feel like God is behind me, if I feel like that wind behind my back, or I feel like it's his idea, I have no problem charging forward. Like coming out here to go to BU, it's like, I felt strongly this is part of that journey. Because you had a plan, but I'm going to take you on my plan. We're going to go out to Massachusetts, and I got some adventure there for you. So that was a big one.
Well, this is a great subject to talk about. I mean, we could talk about a whole other show about this, but I mean, I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking one question that comes to mind regarding the same subject is, and you heard me ask this before, but this is appropriate right now, I think, because we're talking about it. I'm wondering if you look at your heart and you can tell me, what do you sense that lately God has been saying to you very clearly?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Think about that one.
You can think about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, when I think about it, I usually take maybe a 5-minute nap. So if I
think too deeply.
All right, that's not maybe too deep. Yeah, there are a few things.
Just pick one. You don't have to tell me all of them.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the latest one I was just talking to Lisa about. Yeah, I do feel like he's given me some motivation and strength to just this is a total practical thing. Like I prayed about. I felt like we were just living a little too crazy with credit cards, and you get into a little bit of debt, and next thing you know, there's like a lot of pressure because we're living in an expensive area, and it's and we have kids in club sports and in dance, and so we're kind of finding ourselves like, dang, kind of going to debt a little bit in the last year or two. So I started praying about it. I said, God, help me out with this, because it's kind of it's just hard to get all that under control. And I prayed that a while back, and then just in the last few months, I feel like I've just been getting tons of ideas and energy and strength to really pull all that together. So I'm meeting with Lisa once a week, and we're kind of going through stuff and practically, paying down some credit cards. And I looked back recently and said, oh my gosh, it just, you think this is your great idea, but I looked back and I said, you know what? I prayed about that, and God answered my prayer, because it's a pressure. You get a little bit underwater, and you feel the pinch, and it's just not good for you, not good for the family. So we're in a little bit of a recovery, trying to get our debt in line, and so I'm sure there's other people who might be listening. That's just it's a big problem we have.
God can help you with that too.
Oh, you can? Okay.
No, I said God can help you with
Oh,
that.
God. I thought maybe.
Let God help you with that.
Okay. I thought you were going to write a check. I see a pin.
Wait a minute. Oh, that's not.
No, just kidding.
We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I also was thinking, actually, when I was thinking I'm going to talk with you, and this is very good. You talked about this, the struggles and sometimes the stress. And there's one dream that I'd like you to share with people that you told me about one time, that you had a dream, and it has to do with a pipe that you have to lift. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to share that with the people out there?
Yeah. So that's interesting. I haven't thought about that in a while, but I think one of my, everybody has like what we can call their superpowers and their strengths, but we all have weaknesses as well. So I think my weakness, which has been pretty hard to shake, is just being a little like worrisome, kind of worrying about the future, kind of living a little bit too beyond,
Your kryptonite.
Yeah, the kryptonite. That's right. The thing that slows me down is kind of living a little bit too much in my head at times, and not fully just trusting God that things are going to work out, or that He's taking care of us. And so, and when I get into sort of an anxious mode, then I start making, I don't know, not so good decisions. I start maybe striving a little bit, working a little too hard, and maybe think, oh, if I just work a double shift and work 8 more hours this next week, work 16 20-hour days. And when I've gotten into that mode, sometimes I start striving. It never seems to really help. It's more I just get really tired and my back starts to hurt. And so God shared with me one time that it was like He gave me a picture of it was like a picture of a pipe. So like a big heavy pipe. If you try to, and it's on the ground, He goes almost like, go pick that up. So I went to go pick up this pipe, and it's really and hold it horizontal to the ground. So if you pick up a pipe from the end and you try to lean, I'm talking about a 15-20 foot pipe here. You really try to hold it up and keep it parallel to the ground. You won't last that long. It's really hard, and you just eventually you drop the pipe. It's like that's crazy. And God showed me that's what you're doing when you start living into. If it's Monday and you're thinking a little bit about Tuesday and Wednesday and kind of worrying about Wednesdays. Oh, what's going to happen Wednesday? On Thursday, there's that other thing I got to do, and it's going to be a huge job. And I found myself living, instead of living in today, like allow myself to just relax. Like there's enough for me to do today that I really shouldn't allow my mind to wander. I mean, you can think about it in terms of scheduling. Oh, I'm doing that on Wednesday, but if you pine about it and worry about something that's coming up, it's like taking and like that's Tuesday, Wednesday. That's the pipe down further. You're trying to hold that thing up, and it'll exhaust you. So I was like, it's just a simple little like engineering like analogy, but it kind of got my attention. It's like, yeah, that's why my back is hurting because I'm trying to hold this pipe up that's too heavy. It's too heavy.
I always remember that image when you share that.
Yeah.
It also projects into the future. So you're trying to lift not only what's in front of you, but further down. And that's what makes it heavier, that it's all the way down there, and you're picking at it from this end.
Yeah.
Which is Monday.
And Monday is pretty. You can pick that up.
Yeah.
You can
You
stand
can
there.
cut it into 7 pieces. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Even better.
Yeah. Then you don't have a
Get
pipe
the
anymore.
sawzall out. Come on. That's it.
All right. Well, it's another thing that I told people when I introduced you is that Bryan is a very talented musician.
Oh, well.
Very talented.
Um,
He put out a CD a few years ago with a few songs.
yeah, it was a
in
while ago, kind of when the kids were younger.
Yeah.
And so,
Have you had and lately have you been playing and writing or here and there or thinking
Yeah.
about songs in your head and your heart or?
Well, I've definitely, I'm not writing as much as I used to, but that's kind of my happy place. If I feel like I had tons of time and energy, and if I feel like, sometimes it happens when I'm on vacation. I'm in my 3rd day of vacation, and I'm like, I pick up my guitar and I start all of a sudden creativity and words start coming, and I start writing songs and things like that. So, so I'm still playing a lot. I still pick up my guitar and play at home. I help lead worship at a church, and so I'm involved in my church, playing guitar, singing, and leading bands, and sometimes just being on the bands. And so, yeah, so I've kind of kept it up. But not doing the gigging as much lately. Yeah.
You just play for personal pleasure. You just relax there and just pick up the guitar and just enjoy time of relaxation or quietness or.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of times when I start playing, it's just fun to be kicking back on the couch. There's people who love guitar understand this. They have their favorite little guitar. They just kick back and start playing with chords, and you discover progressions and things, and it's fun. It's kind of it's relaxing. It kind of takes you to a chill place at times. Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, music.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing. I always thought, as you know, one of my daughters likes to play, and I always.
And she's amazing. She's amazing. She is amazing.
She's good. She's good. But it occurred to me, speaking of God, that music is very close to the heart of God.
Yeah.
If you read in the Bible, you'll find I think even in Genesis, there's a part where a song is written, and it's God who writes the song. It's with Moses and singing about the things that happened. But if you go to the beginning of that chapter, you notice that it was God that wrote it, and so even God writes songs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you flip to the middle of the Bible, and it's all these psalms.
All the
and these were
it's beautiful.
These
beautiful.
it's a huge part of the how people connect with God. So, and for me too, that's a big part where a lot of times I'll be singing, and it becomes sort of connection with God time. That's a big part of it. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just writing fun things, and it's whimsical, but a lot of times it's also it's connection time.
Would it be okay for you to share a song with us, one of your songs?
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that? We'd love that. I think that people would love to hear your talent too.
Yeah. I actually have a song that I wrote a while back, and I haven't recorded it, but I do want to record it sometime in the near future. Well, in a studio. So, but it's kind of about growing up, my hometown.
Yeah.
And it's called Lindsay, which is a small little town in California. And I wrote it because I was a little kind of homesick at one point. I was out here thinking, I have a big family, and I miss my family. I miss my parents. I have some best friends there, one in particular that just, I'm still in touch with all the time. And so this song sort of it came out of that moment of like, oh man, I miss what I grew up in and the culture, and although I love it here and I feel like a true New Englander now. You know.
You got the California mountains behind you.
Hey, all right. Well, let me try
and
this.
You can sing the small town song. Let's hear it. I really appreciate it.
Well, I brought my guitar, so let me grab that.
Ukulele, whatever it is.
Got my new Epiphone.
So this
guitar.
is called Lindsay.
That's called Lindsay. Yeah.
Okay.
See if I can get this somewhat right. In the Sandwalking Valley, not too far from Bakersfield, grew up in a small town where you get that hometown feel. Farmers praying to God for good weather, and the ground would produce our meals. Living life in a small town was living life for real. Memories flood my mind when I think about those times. Family and my best friends, all my triumphs and all my sins, it's all there in Lindsay where life began. Orange and olive groves, walnut trees, corn and cotton fields. Oh, farmers praying to God for good weather, and the ground would produce our meals. Living life in a small town was living life for real. Memories flood my mind when I think about those times. Family and my best friends, all my triumphs and all my sins, it's all there in Lindsay, life began. Then there's my family, if I had the time. Oh, the stories that come to mind. There were sorrows and there was pain, but mostly thoughts of joy remain. Memories flood my mind when I think about those times. Family and my best friends, all my triumphs and all my sins, it's all there in Lindsay. Well, it's all there in Lindsay where life began. Well, there it is.
Great job.
There it is.
Great job.
I think I messed up the words a little bit, but
That's all right.
I haven't played it in a while. And
You didn't practice
when
like
I
10
record it,
times
I didn't
before you
practice
came
10
here?
times. No, it's after work. I'm a little tired, so
You
that's sort
sound
of,
very different when you sing than when you talk.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what happened. I'm not. Yeah.
that's great. No, you
Oh,
sound great.
That's not a
That's
pro. All right,
No, that you sound great. It's like, but it's like a transformation. That, I think
Yeah.
I saw like a unicorn,
Unicorn.
and like wings and. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Thanks
no.
a lot. I appreciate that, man. That's really good. I
Yeah.
think people are really gonna like listen to that. You're
Next time we do
talented.
this, I'll actually do the correct words. I think I'll do that.
You forgot your memories?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I should have wrote them down, but yeah.
All right. One thing that we haven't talked about is your business. You're a businessman.
Yeah.
You got a lot of talents. A lot of talents.
Well, I mean,
You're in the leather
yeah.
repair business.
Yeah, in the leather restoration and repair
Restoration and repair, yeah.
trade, yeah,
Yeah.
which is a very another unicorn subject because there's not many people that do it. It's really kind of a strange niche.
Yeah.
But when the people that need the kind of work that we need are really happy to find us because a lot of nutty accidents happen with leather. You know, expensive leather furniture in particular is our lane that we cover. Some of our colleagues, they just do automotive work, and I suppose there's equestrian and saddles and that kind, but we're very much in the furniture lane,
Yeah.
and so we're niche-based business.
And it's called Hub Leather
It's called Hub Leather Incorporated. We just incorporated a few years ago,
in Framingham, Massachusetts.
and yeah, it's based in Framingham, which is very central, and we travel all over to go to people's homes to help them out. We have a shop as well where people bring their furniture to us, especially when we need to pull components and sew on new panels and custom color match and all that kind of stuff. So need the space for that. Yeah.
It's good. Good. Full disclosure, I work with Bryan.
I don't know if you were going to actually mention that, but yeah.
No, that's okay. I don't have to. I don't have to. It's about you today, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Bryan. Thank you for that song. I hope that everyone out there watches this show and is inspired by Bryan, and also if you need a leather couch or that needs to be repaired or restored,
That's right.
his
Yeah.
business is Hub Leather in Framingham, Massachusetts.
That's right.
And Bryan is a very good man. I was noticing, I look at the picture, like the last time I had a show, I was moving like this, and I realized there's something missing up there. So I'm not gonna make that turn again. But thank you very much. We're gonna wrap it up now. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for the next person of interest.
All right.